There's 4 phases of strength training that I like to use in an athlete's training program. Phase 1 is usually in the preparation mode. It's also in the maintenance mode, but let's talk about the preparation mode. It's characterized by doing body weight movements. If you have use of any equipment, I recommend a stability ball or a BOSU ball. And it's during this phase that we're trying to set the foundation of movement and work on movement execution. So not lifting heavy weight, but just doing form-related basic movements such as a squat, a hinge, a push, and a pull, and then a little bit more core-related, mobility-related exercises to target the area between your shoulders and hips. It's characterized by higher reps, and again, like I already said, it's body weight, so it's less resistance. Once you develop this foundation, maybe 4, 6, 8 weeks worth of 2 to 3 times a week, then you're ready to advance into phase 2, which is the maximum strength phase. Maximum strength phase is usually characterized when you start to build your base, when you start to build those miles on the swim, bike, and run, or whatever your sport is. It's characterized by equipment, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to use equipment, and I'm going to demonstrate why in a moment. But generally, if you have access to a facility such as a health club, a weight room, exercise equipment, dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, or machines or cables, because you want to lift heavy objects. If you don't have access to equipment like that, you can just find heavy objects around your home and lift heavy objects. You're trying to maintain the foundational, nicely executed movements that you developed in phase 1. You want to maintain that form with added resistance, so you're doing heavier weight, less repetitions with good form. Usually you're doing maybe 3, 4, up to 5 sets of around 4 to 6, 8 repetitions. Once you develop that strength, again, you're looking at around 8-week program of 2 to 3 days a week. Then you're ready to move on to phase 3, which is the power building phase, which is characterized by doing exactly what you did in these phases, but the movements are quicker and you're adding a little bit more plyometric type movements. So instead of doing your standard squat, you're doing a squat with an added jump. Maybe you did squats with heavier weight, now you take the weight away and you add that movement such as a plyometric movement. This is going to be a little bit shorter phase, about 4 weeks long in this power phase, and it's during, as you enter your competition build phase, getting ready to race. So before your taper and peak phase of training, you're going to be building that power, and then as you start to compete and your training is involving more rest before the race, more rest after the race, you're going to go into phase 4, which is the maintenance phase, which is very similar to the stability and mobility phase. Now, Dave Erickson from Endurance Hour demonstrates body weight movements on the stability ball, movements on the BOSU ball, movements with dumbbells, barbells, machines, and cables on the Endurance Hour channel. Today, I just wanted to demonstrate how you can take the basic push-pull, hinge, squat movement and advance from phase 1 all the way through phase 4. Okay, we're going to start with your basic push-up. Again, the idea is executing the right form, not necessarily repetitions. It's better to do 1 or 2 quality push-ups with form-related focus than it is to try to whip out 10. So the idea is to put your hands underneath your shoulders, lower your body, and then push all the way up, keeping that core tight, back loose, all the way up, all the way down. Now, if you're someone who can't do a push-up, what I have the kids that I coach do, I have them start with their body flat on the ground, and then they're just working on pushing themselves up. They lower their knees, they lower their body, and then they just work on pushing themselves up, lower their knees, lower their body, and they're just working on the push part of the movement. Now there's various ways you can modify this and make it a little bit more workload, so you're moving more into phase 2. The way to do that, you can put an actual weight on your body, a heavy object on your body, whether it's a plate, a weight room plate, or a jug of water, or something that's going to provide that extra resistance so you're able to do less reps with good form and work on strength. You could also move your hands wider position, or you can move your hands a little bit narrower position and push up, and that'll increase the difficulty of the push-up. You can also take objects, if you have them, like a stability ball, and you can put your hand or your feet up on the stability ball, and then you're doing more of a decline type of movement, and adds a little bit more stability to the movement and a little bit more load, a little bit more resistance without actually using resistance. Lower your body and push your body up. That's a little bit more advanced for me at this point in my training. But those are ways to advance the push-up. And then when you want to move on to the phase 3, where you're adding more power plyometrics, you can actually do a plyometric push-up, where after you lower your body, you actually push your body up. Maybe you don't do a clap, maybe you do, but I have to go on my knees for that type of plyometric movement. Definitely you want to make sure you progress accordingly, progress with the stability phase, into the strength phase, into the power phase. When it comes to the squat movement, you're trying to squat down back on your heels. So if you had a chair right here, you're just trying to squat down and sit on the chair, and you want to power up through your heels, through your legs. Squat down as low as you can go, and then power up. Again, what you're trying to avoid is going up on your toes and having your knee go over your toe when you're squatting. So you want your legs about hip width apart. I like to put my hands up like I'm holding on to something, and then squat. This is your stability move. This is your execution move. Now when you advance into phase 2, you can hold some dumbbells, hold some heavy objects like water bottles or water jugs or laundry detergent boxes full of laundry detergent. Anything that's heavy you can use. Another way to advance a squat is to stand on a stability ball. You can stand on either side of the ball, and it's just going to add a little bit more of a dynamic movement into your routine to increase the workload. So before I would add any weight while I was standing on the Bosu ball, I would make sure I have the movement correctly, and then I would add some dumbbells or a barbell, or maybe even resistance bands. So those are ways to take the basic squat movement and advance it. I've also seen people stand on a stability ball. I quite don't have that core strength yet to stand on my stability ball. But if you're there, that's something you might want to try. So next and then going into phase 3, when you're adding that plyometric move, it's just adding a jump movement and doing squat jumps for that more advanced plyometric movement. But it's really important that you go through the phases first, so you develop that foundation, develop the strength before you move into the plyometric, and then you go into maintenance mode. Next, I want to talk about a hinge or a deadlift, and that's simply where you're leaning forward and you're feeling it in your hamstrings, glutes, and lower back. So the idea is to keep your belly button in, suck your belly button into your spine, keep your back flat, which is a little bit arched, hinge forward, and then use these hamstrings, glutes to push your body up. Hinge forward, and then push your body up. This is your basic movement in phase 1. When you advance, you can take a heavy object, I'm going to use this right now as my heavy object. So I'm performing the same movement, but now I have a heavy object and I'm getting more strength gains within the same basic movement. You could also advance this movement by standing on the Bosu ball with weights, hinging forward, keeping that belly button in to protect the lower back. If you're going to use weight, you can also advance it and do a one-legged forward hinge, or AKA this is also a type of, it's a deadlift. If you want to think about it as a deadlift, you can do one-legged deadlift, and that's not only going to help with your hamstring strength, but you're also working on ankle stability and mobility with this basic forward hinge. Now the fourth movement that I talked about is a pulling movement. Unless you do body weight with a pull-up bar, you still need equipment. It's a little bit more difficult to target your back muscles without a piece of equipment. So a pull-up bar I have in my house that I like to use. I also like to just use a set of bands where it's a very inexpensive piece of equipment that you could use, but I like to tie a band around an object and do various rowing movements, rows where I'm squeezing my back muscles together. I'm in a slightly squatted position for stability, and I'm using my back, squeezing my shoulder blades together and back. This is your standard row. You can also take the same band and do a pull down, which mimics a pull-up. You're kind of getting the same general muscles as you would in a pull-up. You're squeezing those shoulder blades back and down your spine. A way to advance this move is just to get heavier resisted bands, or maybe you go from bands to the pull-up, or you use equipment at a facility. But I wanted to keep this video as less equipment-based workout routine you can do. A way to advance this is to squat and pull down at the same time, and you can do these squats and pull downs on the Bosu ball as a way to add more resistance to your routine. Squat and pull down, and then stand up and release. Squat and pull down, stand up and release. So there you have it, a basic push, squat, hinge, pull, and a way to advance it and do body weight, foundational movements, add some resistance for strength, and then add some jumpings for more power.